In the industrial sprawl of 1840s, Birmingham, where factory chimneys spewed black smoke and the air rang with the clang of iron, the city's poor clung to survival in the shadows of progress. The streets were a maze of mud and filth, the cries of street vendors mingling with the coughs of the destitute, their lives a daily gamble against hunger and cold. Among them was Jane Carter, a 16-year-old with tangled brown hair and eyes that held a flicker of defiance despite her gaunt frame. Her family had lived in a crumbling tenement, her father a laborer until a factory accident claimed his leg, her mother wasting away from fever, her siblings too young to work. When their landlord evicted them, the family was torn apart, her parents sent to debtor's prison, her siblings scattered to beg, and Jane consigned to the Birmingham Workhouse, a grim fortress on the city's edge where hope went to die. The workhouse loomed like a prison, its gray walls streaked with soot, its iron gates creaking shut behind Jane as she entered, her tattered shawl clutched tight against the chill. The air inside was thick with the stench of unwashed bodies and boiled gruel, the corridors lit by flickering lamps that cast shadows on the stone. The master, Mr. Amos Finch, was a man of 40, his face pocked with scars, his eyes cold as the iron he once forged, his authority absolute in this den of despair. He ruled with a leather strap, his voice a growl as he ordered Jane to the oakum-picking room, her hands trembling as she sat among the other inmates, their fingers bleeding from the coarse rope, their faces hollow with hunger. Women and children filled the workhouse, their lives bound by endless labor, their spirits broken by Finch's cruelty, their whispers a warning of his temper as he prowled the halls. Jane's first day set the tone for her suffering. Finch singled her out, his gaze lingering on her slight frame, his words sharp as he called her a lazy wretch, his strap cracking against her back when she dropped a bundle of oakum, her cry echoing through the room. The other inmates, hardened by their own misery, turned on her, their jealousy a storm as they saw her defiance as a threat. A woman with a missing tooth shoved her against the wall, her nails digging into Jane's arm, her whispers venomous as she warned her to obey. The children, their eyes hollow, threw bits of rope at her, their taunts a chorus of "beggar's brat" as they laughed, their cruelty a mirror of the workhouse's own. Finch withheld her rations, her daily gruel reduced to a watery spoonful, her stomach a hollow ache that gnawed at her strength, her lips cracked from thirst as she begged for water, her voice a whisper against his sneer. The weeks that followed were a descent into torment, Finch's cruelty a ritual Jane could not escape. He beat her for every misstep, his strap leaving welts on her legs, her arms bruised from his grip, her brown hair matted with blood from a split brow. He locked her in a coal cellar for a day when she spoke back, the darkness a suffocating weight, the rats scurrying over her feet as she shivered, her breath fogging in the chill. The inmates' harassment grew bolder, a group of women tearing her shawl, their hands pulling her hair, their laughter a blade in her fading resolve. A boy with a limp threw slop at her, the rancid mess clinging to her dress, his jeers echoing as she scrubbed the floor, her hands raw from the lye. Jane learned to curl into herself, her knees drawn to her chest, her eyes fixed on a crack in the wall, her mind clinging to memories of her siblings' laughter, a faint light in the darkness. Months passed, and Jane's body withered under the workhouse's cruelty, her frame skeletal, her skin pale as ash, her hair falling out in clumps. The cold seeped into her bones, the straw mattress offering no warmth, the lice a constant torment as they crawled over her in the night. She scratched her name into the wall with a splinter, her fingers bleeding, her mark a silent defiance against the workhouse's attempt to erase her. The hunger gnawed at her, her ribs sharp against her skin, her strength fading with each passing day. One evening, as a storm raged outside, Finch's rage reached its peak, his strap striking her ribs, her breath a shallow rasp as she collapsed, her body too weak to rise. The inmates watched, their faces cold, their whispers a chorus as they turned away, her suffering a mirror to their own. Jane lay there, her eyes fixed on the crack in the wall, her mind drifting to her siblings, her heart heavy with the knowledge that they'd never know her fate. By dawn, Jane's strength had faded, her body still, her breath a faint wisp that ceased in the stillness of the morning. The workhouse matron found her at first light, her frame a husk, her name scratched into the wall, the only proof she'd ever been there. Finch ordered her buried in an unmarked grave behind the workhouse, her story swallowed by the institution's shadows, her siblings left to beg in Birmingham's alleys. Yet whispers of her suffering lingered, the inmates speaking of a girl's shadow seen in the oakum room, her silhouette flickering on stormy nights, her eyes hollow with grief. The workhouse walls grew colder, Finch's sleep haunted by a chill he couldn't shake, as if Jane's spirit lingered, a silent witness to his cruelty. In the 1840s, Birmingham, workhouses were a prison for the poor, their inmates voiceless, their suffering a footnote in a city that thrived on their despair. Jane's story, a haunting echo in the stone.